welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. Today, just recently, Friday, breaking State of Downtown report published by the Downtown Vision. Old GC over here sent me a text immediately, started nerding out about it. So we had to do a show about it because not all cities do this, right? Like not all cities have this really clear data about downtown that you can learn from. And there's a treasure trove of stuff that we can learn as investors, that we can infer, that can give us insight into what's happening, what's coming, and let you make not your average decisions. I am your host, Pablo Gonzalez. With me, as always, the man that I affectionately like to call GC because of his genius concepts, because he knows how to generate cash flow, because he's a great co-host, and because his name is Gregg Cohen. Say hello, Greg.
Hello, everybody. Great to be with you.
And with us, as always, our amazing community manager. We call her MTM because she brings us the moments that matter, and because her name is Madison the Magnificent. Say hello, Madison.
Hi, everybody.
What'd you think about the kickoff right there? Kind of like went 0 to 60 real quick, huh?
You know, I mean, so we were running this morning. You were like, "Hey, I'm a little slow today. Maybe feeling a little bit under the weather." And you're like, "Don't worry, I'm gonna bring it. I'm gonna bring it. I think you brought it. Way to go."
That's what I do. All right. And speaking of bringing it, we have our amazing crowd in the house. We know that we got people checking in on YouTube. We got people checking in on the podcast. Why don't you go check out the course? What do you think about that?
I love it.
Tell them about the course that we got.
You know, Pablo and I put this course together not too long ago, and it was something that we spent a tremendous amount of time putting together, really trying to think about how tremendous. It's tremendous. I don't know what the scale is once you get to tremendous, but a lot of really good quality time. And, you know, the idea here was to create a way that others could learn, could take action, could start to benefit from this asset class in a clear, concise, easy to digest way to do it. And so that's what we built. It's called the Not Your Average Investor Guide to Investing in Rental Properties Passively. And it's something that we absolutely want you to take advantage of. It's built for those who maybe just need to take their first step of getting into rental property investing. And you're going to find about 2 hours of courses broken down into bite-sized chunks, 5-minute, 10-minute courses. You want to know about the 5 profit centers, get a deep dive on that. Boom, you're there. You want to know about things to avoid that can really kill your cash flow. Go there.
We got what, 8 cash flow killers, 9 cash flow killers?
I love it.
Perfect for Halloween.
Oh, yeah. We probably should have done that.
GC said that we took a tremendous amount of time so we can make it just the right length to not take too much of your time so you can go 0 to 60, understand this asset class well. If you are already well-versed in this asset class, I am pretty sure there's going to be some great stuff in there for you as well. You find it at notyouraverage.com.
Yes, you do.
Notyouraverage.com, put together by yours truly. You're going to have fun. You're going to check it out, be an expert, show up, and then you just get to be part of the little rituals that we have around here, like what you see.
The roll call, baby.
Who do we got first? We got the MVPs in the house. So glad to be here today.
Lee Bishop,
you're familiar with him. We got the ringmaster in the house.
Drew Barnhill
checking in. We got our leadoff batter hitting third today.
John Henning.
In the house. We got the Shaman.
Nadeem Shah.
We got the Maven from the mountains of Denver.
Miss Leslie Wilson.
We got Chris Lee from Fernandina Beach. Hello all. We got the patron Santorius of the community.
Michael Santorius.
Big Papa in the house. We love him when he calls in Big Papa.
Pops, how are you, my man?
Cohen, Greg's dad. We got our regulars, Gary and Rosalind Riley from Marietta, California, the second family. We regard you.
Oh my, we regard you. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness.
We got the early bird in the house. Redeem yourself here, buddy.
Dean Curry.
Hanging out with us. We got Denny Davis with a what, GC?
Oh my goodness.
We can't.
Woo, pig. Wait. Then he says, no. He says, go Gators. Right. It is Gators versus Arkansas week, right. Denny. You are such a kind soul.
Blackout in the middle of the day. It's going to be wonderful. Karen Regal in the house from St. John's, Florida.
There we go. My business partner's mama over there.
Good to have you in the house, Karen. We got our favorite name to pronounce, Aaron O'Neill.
Into the lights.
We got the Mountain Man.
Billy Green.
Green from the snowy Halloween mountains of Colorado. Today's the Mountain Man's birthday.
No way.
Happy birthday, Mountain Man.
Oh, man, that's incredible, Mountain Man.
Good to have you in the house with us celebrating. We got Victor Scarpula back in the house. Good to have you.
All right, Victor.
In here, we got the first family of the Not Your Average Invest Show, Patriarch and Matriarch, Ken and Carolyn Meline.
We salute you.
All right, who else we got in here? All right, I think that's a good roll call for right now. GC. What'd you freak out when this thing came out? What's so special about this?
So excited, yeah. Right? This Downtown Vision report, Downtown Vision is the organization that creates the report. So excited because, you know, this whole movement of what downtown Jacksonville is today has gone from just a bright idea from a lot of really dedicated people, call it 10, 15 years ago, to something that gained a little bit of traction with the investment community, a little bit of traction with the powers that be in the local city government, a little bit of traction with other influential leaders in the business community. Over time, a little bit of traction, a little bit of traction, a little bit of traction, but really over, call it the last 6 months, it has hit a full on crescendo. When I go out into conversations with friends, I was hanging out on Saturday watching the Gator game as our Gators got destroyed. And I'm sitting there with a group of 6 or 8 of my really close friends in my local neighborhood who don't know anything about real estate, don't know me about anything about real estate other than, JWB, but they're not interested in real estate. Mm-hmm. We're just there to hang out with all of our kids and watch the game. And we started into a conversation about the Pearl Street district in downtown Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you know what? This has arrived. And so the reason that I'm so excited about the Downtown Vision Report, which is called the State of Downtown, is because it puts some numbers and it puts some perspective behind the type of gains that we're seeing for our downtown. And I think it makes it even more believable. So this is something I look forward to. I dig into this each and every year. And the other thing about this, as I've learned, is and I've probably the last 3 years, I've really dug deep into it. I realize that not every city does this. Mm-hmm. Not every city actually produces a downtown report like you were mentioning, but even the ones that do, they don't do it like we do. Mm-hmm. This downtown report has a lot more measurable items that you can hold yourself accountable. And I started to think about it from another lens, like, you kind of take a risk when you put some of these numbers out here. You take a risk when you talk about how much activity is under construction. You take a risk about how much activity is proposed. You take a risk about projections from where you see your city going over the next 5 years, 10 years, because if it doesn't turn out that way, people are going to hold you accountable to that.
True.
And so I started thinking about it from that perspective. So I'm so thankful for our city to do it this way. I'm thankful for the organizations that support the State of Downtown Market Report, because I go and I look at some of these really great cities. I look at Atlanta, I look at Washington, D.C., I look at Austin, I look at Nashville. I look for all of these other downtown reports, and they are not nearly as accountable and measurable and data-driven and perspective-laden as we have here. So I don't know. Can you kind of tell I'm a little fired up about it?
I can tell you're fired up, buddy.
I feel like I could just gone on a rant there. Adjective.
Adjective, data, perspective. For me, I experience it in the way that when we are trying to put shows together and we're trying to put out data and perspective and stuff like that, it's always so hard to find really good numbers. Mm-hmm. And we take it for granted that we get these awesome numbers from Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. And part of it is, I think it's JWB and the data flywheel. There's an inherent advantage here. But when I look at a report like this, I was just scrolling through it for those of you that are watching on YouTube or here with us live. It is 21 pages of meaty data. Right? Mm-hmm. I shared it in the chat. You can check it out yourself, spend some time in there. And the number one thing that really, really stands out is that it starts with this idea of a smart growth plan. Mm-hmm. I don't think that you can put something out like this. I don't think you can have this like yearly state of the economy report that has so much going on if you don't have a North Star of what you're building for. You're not starting, you're starting with something that you're trying to like really, really aim for. And that to me, as a citizen, right, as a resident here, is really, really encouraging, because I know that you're not going to get the results that you want, if you're not striving towards something. If you don't have a plan in place, you're not tracking yourself to it, you don't know if you're winning or losing. And this report to me represents that. It's like a beautiful business plan, mm-hmm. and then like reporting back at the end of the year on how things are going, which is the first thing that sticks out to me.
Absolutely. I think that was spot on.
Yeah. So that being said, it essentially talks about the master plan itself. It's got a couple blurbs from everybody. It talks about residential growth, office growth, hospitality, the mix of what's going on, all really, really good trending numbers. Do you see anything stick out to you that you want to kind of like highlight?
Yeah, there's a few things. I mean, should I jump right into some of the most important kind of data points that I thought were meaningful?
I think our community can read it themselves, but I just want to know what you skim to first, and what sticks out to you.
And I think that's kind of my role here as a way to kind of facilitate this discussion. There's a whole lot there. You're not going to probably read all of it unless you're a nerd like me and you really want to know this at a really, really deep level. But here's some of the most important things, and it kind of builds off of the important leading indicators that we have told you to pay attention to in the past. Yep. Amount of projects under construction.
Yeah.
Okay. We have $4 billion in active construction in 2023 here in little old Jacksonville. Again, I try to compare that to other cities out there. I looked through all of those cities' downtown reports like I just shared with you, and none of them actually listed the amount of downtown construction that they had. My feeling is that nobody has $4 billion going on at this exact moment. And the reason that I feel that way is because the one report that I did see was Washington, D.C.'s report, and they had $1 billion of construction going on downtown. So the amount of activity right now going on is at an all-time high in Jacksonville. And if you're thinking about how can you take advantage of a leading indicator to produce a better risk-adjusted return, and you believe that a downtown coming online is the greatest growth generator for a real estate market and an economy, then that active amount of dollars of construction is the best leading indicator, because that means buildings are being renovated. That means mixed use is coming. That means people are coming to live downtown. And this is different than proposed. It is easy for an organization to say, hey, this is proposed out here. That's like one developer out there saying, hey, I got an idea. You never know if that developer actually. Here's a funny thing. Yeah. We've had things that are proposed in Jacksonville I can speak of. We've had projects that are proposed by developers out there. They don't even own the land. We had somebody propose something that we own the land, and they proposed a development on our own land. Yeah. So I don't really pay attention all that much to proposed, and I'm sure it's that way across the country. But active construction means that dollars, first of all, plans were put in place years ago. Dollars were raised, dollars are being spent, cranes are moving things, and buildings are being completed. So $4 billion there is the biggest thing that jumped out to me. Here's another point that I wanted to see is like, because you do have a part of that, which is called in review. And I was like, what's our track record for moving things from in review to completed? And so this report showed that $500 million of projects that were in review have now broken ground. And so some projects like Riverfront Plaza, which for anybody who's familiar with downtown Jacksonville, that used to be the former landing site. So that is actively being worked on. If you're to drive down downtown Jacksonville, or for those who are going to be on the Not Your Average Investor tour coming soon, probably in February-ish, we'll get you a date. You'll see that this project is going on downtown right now. Or the project to bring the Four Seasons, the first 5-star hotel in downtown Jacksonville, as a part of the Shipyards project, which is being done by the ownership group by the owner of the Jags, Shad Khan. That's moved. So not only do we have a large number for things that are actually going on right now, but they are moving from stage to stage. And I think of that as very important, showing track record each one of those stages, because the next stage is this $4 billion of work is done. Yeah. And people are living in it and going to restaurants and bars. And that economic activity, again, leads to higher home prices, higher rents.
Yeah. And I was going to bring that up, right? But first, I'm basically going to say that you're so pumped up about this because this idea of pipeline of projects under construction is essentially the most material scoreboard of how things are going, where people are putting their money, right? So like this amount, this $4 billion that you think that other cities are probably scared to show, how many runs they got on the board, because I'm not going to say that this is show.
I don't really know that for a fact. Yeah, I'm a little excited about that. I'm just saying $4 billion is a big number.
It's a big number. It's a big number. It's a big number for a, what we are called a secondary or tertiary market, right, however you want to put it, when a market like DC has 1 billion going on, right? So like 4x that stuff, big scoreboard. This idea of how much projects are moving is essentially saying like how good we are. The World Series is going on right now. How good we are at getting the runners on base home.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a really, really good number, along with the runs already on the board is a really, really good number. And again, we geek out about this stuff because we've got 60 plus people here right now. I see the names that are in the chat. I see the people that are here, and many of us have money invested in Jacksonville and are thinking about investing more money in Jacksonville. And what this is telling us is that the people, there is big money that is agreeing with you, right? There is big money that is putting into downtown these $4 billion. That is essentially what a telltale sign that the property that you already own here in Jacksonville around the urban core, and the properties that if you may or may not be looking at investing in for single family homes and workforce housing, That is other people saying, we believe in those numbers as well. We are betting on that as well. And, beyond that, it is a self-fulfilling prophecy of sorts. It is a flywheel, as we like to call it, that if this stuff is really happening, if downtown is really blossoming right now in a time where economics seems so uncertain, and we look around at the economy and we think, man, all this other stuff, seems so uncertain. There's all these things happening worldwide and, things happening in the economy that scare us and headlines that scare us. There seems to be like a pocket of the economy, which is Jacksonville, that is doing really, really well and is being buoyed by all these other local forces that are going to make our investments do well here and now.
Yeah, quite simply, some of these projects that you may see in other markets may or may not happen. Some of the ones in Jacksonville may or may not happen, right? We never know what's going to happen in the future, and economy obviously affects different projects at a different time. But I feel a whole lot better about these projects going through because they're already in the ground moving.
Yep.
This is the big thing. This is the transition that I've been excited to talk about for 3 years now. Is 3 years ago, I knew that these projects were coming online. I couldn't wait until when we go on our tour and when people are walking and going down downtown Jacksonville, they actually see cranes.
Yep.
Like, that's a big deal. The money has already, the hundreds of millions of dollars has already been raised. Or if you're the case of Shad Khan, he probably has in his back pocket, that money's there. And that's such a big deal when it comes to actually delivering projects that can make a big economic impact.
Totally. The community is already diving in, right? There's already people pulling things out. Let's like build up downtown, these different things. Denny Davis is saying these numbers are staggering because he's looking at the report. Jacksonville could eventually turn from an 18-hour city into a 24-hour city. Property values would go insane. This 18-hour city thing.
Yeah, that's really cool, Denny.
That is something we pulled out too. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Wow. So, Jacksonville is not an 18-hour city right now.
Yes.
If we could go from a 12-hour city to an 18-hour city, wow. As rental property investors in workforce housing surrounding downtown, you are in for a really good treat when it comes to home price appreciation and overall return on investment. A 12-hour city would be, people go there to work and then they leave after work. And if we're being very transparent about Jacksonville's downtown, that's what it is right now. We're on the verge of going from a 12-hour city to an 18-hour city. When we had Brian Mull here and we had Alex, Brian Mull is the CEO of Gateway Jacks, who is heading up what is going to be a $2 billion investment in downtown Jacksonville, of which JWB is a sponsor of that investment. The first phase of it's $500 million. It's happening in downtown Jacksonville. Oh, by the way, that's not even included in the downtown report yet.
Really? I didn't even think about that.
That's $2 billion of activity that's not included here. You know what else is not included in the $4 billion that I talked about? The stadium renovation, which is another $2 billion that is going on. You know what else is not included there? The University of Florida graduate level campus.
Yeah.
Right. So there's so much that's not included in that $4 billion. Man, what was I talking about before that?
18-hour city.
Thank you so much, man. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So we're a 12-hour city right now.
We're 12-hour city.
People work there, but they don't stay there.
Yeah. So I was like, what does that transition of a 12-hour city to an 18-hour city actually look like? I was like, what does that mean? And so I started to go back and I started to look at other successful downtowns that are coming online. I keep telling you guys, while this is so big for our city and our community and for us as investors, it's not like it hasn't been done before. You can go to other cities that have gone from secondary, tertiary markets that have gone from 12-hour cities to 18-hour cities, and you can follow their playbook. So guess what? And I know we probably don't have it pulled up right here, but I went to go and look at the State of Downtown report for Austin in 2022. And if anybody wanted to do a Google search, I'm sure you could find it. And if you find it, go ahead and put the link in there. Yep. But what did they title their State of Downtown report for 2022?
Going for that 18-hour city.
Austin has arrived as an 18-hour city. No joke. That is the title of their State of Downtown report. So they worked for, call it 10, 15 years. And over time, they saw huge wins all along the way to the point where they finally have achieved, we are now an 18-hour city. And an 18-hour city means that people not only work there, but they stay late, they eat dinner, they go and they have fun. And there's a lot of amenities that are in downtown. And that is what we're working towards with Jacksonville. And I do have some really fun stats to look at. I'll probably say them a little bit when it comes to Austin and some of these other cities that have been successful. But we're doing so many good things as far as following the roadmap that Austin, that Nashville, that Denver, that Tampa. We literally have Brian Mull, who is the CEO of Gateway Jacks. He was the second in command for Tampa's Water Street billion-dollar development downtown that changed that city from a 12-hour city to an 18-hour city. So many good things in place, and we're following the roadmap, and we expect to land there just like those cities did.
Danny, I love that you call that out, because I love these like acronyms of where they group the cities, right? At one point, the report talks about the emerging trends and the ULI, and I know that we've talked about it, and I went and I found it for 2023. There is a ULI report that talks about the real estate market and emerging real estate trends and market categories. And if you'll see here, there is a section for 18-hour cities, right? Like Charlotte, Denver, Fort Lauderdale, Minneapolis, Portland, Salt Lake, San Diego have all achieved it. Austin is already claiming it, but ULI here has it as, it's obviously their goal.
Yeah.
But you'll notice that Austin is in a different category that has exactly 5 cities, and Jacksonville's in it, and it's the supernovas. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this a couple of times. This is the first time that I actually find the report that shows it, but it's this idea that Jacksonville, Boise, Austin, Nashville, and Raleigh are all supernova cities. Now, I don't know the exact price points of all these cities, but I know anecdotally, Austin, Boise, Nashville, and Raleigh are way more expensive cities that have already grown a bunch and are being called supernovas. Jacksonville, to me, is the one city that really sticks out here as like the bargain supernova city. Well, bargain might have a bad connotation, but I think the value play, right? This idea that it's not the $500 blackjack table, it's the $10 blackjack table, and you know how to count the cards.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you were thinking of a place to get the best return on your investment, if you had to choose a city in that list to get the best return of your investment of the Super Sun Belt, the 18-hour cities of the supernovas, where do you expect to get the best, call it home price appreciation, given what prices are today?
Yeah, where there's more room to grow,
yeah,
and it's still affordable.
Exactly. The ones that haven't become 18-hour cities yet. Yeah. That's where you should be searching and say, okay, wow, my dollar is really going to return faster when I focus on that supernova list. And then at the same time on the supernova list, which is the most undervalued compared to those other places, we know Nashville has blown up. Yeah. We know Austin has blown up. We know Boise has blown up. Yeah. For sure. Raleigh, Durham as well. If there was a place that I was looking at, I'm like, where could I expect to see outsized home price appreciation because of the development of a downtown? Boom. That's where I would look. I would look at the bottom of the supernovas list, and that's actually where Jacksonville is.
And that's where Jacksonville is. Exactly. Right. So we are talking about all of this stuff because we're excited about it, because this report came out.
You're excited? Who's excited?
I'm pretty excited, man. I got 3 properties around here. Again, if you're coming new to the show and you're like, oh yeah, this is exciting, I am thinking about investing in Jacksonville, the best thing that you can do is go to chatwithjwb.com and just get that conversation going. Because we're talking about this state of downtown, because downtown is this like nuclear reactor at the center of the property values that are all going to happen. And when it comes online, stuff goes up. So the easiest way to get in as a non-active, maybe non-accredited investor that doesn't have $1 million to get in on a project like the Pearl Street District is to invest in the workforce housing that surrounds the urban core. Because when that stuff happens, jobs come, people come, median incomes go up, property values go up, rents go up, all the stuff that we like as rental property investors start to really, really happen. So Raj is asking for a copy of the report in the chat. Raj, I put it up a little earlier, but I'm going to put it in there again. All right, GC, anything else that you want to tease out there that you saw in the report?
I do. I want to kind of take this whole big report and have you focus on just a few items. Okay. And the next one is population growth. Yeah. Population in downtown largely was around 3,000 to 3,500 people living in downtown Jacksonville for as long as I can remember. And I originally moved here back in 2005. And it was just always that way, always that way. Well, over the last few years, in the last 10 years, our population has doubled. We went from roughly 4,000 10 years ago to roughly 8,000 people living downtown right now. That's a really good sign. Why is population growth so important? It's because when people are living downtown, you are spending money downtown. When people are spending money downtown, new bars and restaurants and amenities come downtown. And when you have people living downtown and it's fun to live downtown because of some of these amenities, employers look at your downtown as a talent creator, as a place where great talent can go. And if you have a low cost of living and you have great talent that's surrounded by some very high paying industries like we have, like healthcare and fintech, you become a place where cities are relocating to. And you may have more Fortune 500 companies that come to your city, or big job creators. And so that's why population growth is such an easy metric to measure, but it's so important because that is a very big driver of this increased home price appreciation and rent growth that we keep talking about.
Yeah, got it. Population growth, we talk about high paying jobs coming here. You need talent to fill those high paying jobs. A walkable, thriving downtown has been shown that our the generation of talent right now, that's what they want to live in. So from a lifestyle standpoint, it's attractive, on the water, good weather, all the good stuff. But really what drives a lot of it is jobs that are happening, right? Like a very well-balanced sector of the economy and a great educational system that feeds those jobs as well, which is coming with the University of Florida graduate student, the other campuses it talked about a law school that opened in downtown.
I didn't even realize this, but the very first law school that's been opened in the state of Florida in the last 20 years is Jacksonville University's College of Law. It's located downtown. They moved to downtown and opened in 2022. And they're currently seeking a new location in downtown to expand because it's been such a success. So there's so many things that are under the radar here. I wanted to point out one more thing when it comes to population growth. It's the fact that population has grown and has doubled in the last 10 years is nice to see, but let's play devil's advocate here. Let's say, okay, Greg, it's doubled, but you might be playing the statistics here. To go from 4,000 to 8,000 people, you gained 4,000 people living there in 10 years. Cool. So it's about that, plus about what is being done to increase the housing units and what's the mindset of the powers that be here locally. Are they increasing the housing units? Do they see more growth coming so that do they see the demand coming for people to want to live downtown? When you think about developers, like JWB is a developer, and we've done a lot of stuff downtown, and there's other developers, you really don't go along with the if you build it, they will come mentality, because that can be really costly. Cities might go with that mentality. If you build it, they will come, because cities have a much deeper pocketbook and their return on investment is not as high as other private developers. But for private developers, you're really only going all into starting to build bigger multifamily units and to take that capital risk if you're really sure that there's enough demand and resident growth, population growth in downtown to support it. So that's why this next figure, I think, is even really more powerful maybe than the first. And it's because Jacksonville has 5,000 multifamily units under construction right now.
Okay.
We have a total of 4,600 in all of downtown right now. We have 5,000 that are under construction right now. And that's through a number of different developers. So all of those developers convinced all of their shareholders that it was a good idea, that their equity, that it was a good idea to put money into that. They then convinced the city to go ahead and approve the plan to go ahead and do that. Many times they had to get an incentive package to do that. So they convinced the city that it was a good idea. And then they actually have been doing the work to bring those 5,000 units into existence. The goal actually by the end of 2030, so let's see, 6 years from now-ish, is they already have plans for 8,140 units to be in addition to what we currently have right here. So I think that's really key. It's not just what are we doing, the trajectory that we're on right now, but what's the money saying is the next step. And you're seeing the money say that there is a lot of untapped demand when it comes to population growth in downtown.
to put a little perspective on that, because we talk a lot about this 10,000 figure, that's 10,000 residents that we're trying to get to, right? Like
Yes.
we're pumped that we're going to cross 10,000 residents. When we're talking about 8,000 more units coming on town, what's the number on that? It's like 2 point something or 1 point something per
like
unit?
1.5 or 1.6 or 7 per unit.
Yeah. So that's
people per unit.
That's an extra like 12,000 residents, right? That is more than just the 10,000 that we are trying to get to. That is more just within that is expected to be the growth of downtown as a population. And to what you're saying, right? Developers don't build and expect the people to come. Developers want to build into existing demand. And if there's already going to be the existing demand of people that will demand services and spaces and businesses and stuff like that, then that begets more development. Right? Like the faster that goes, it is a rapidly growing curve. It's not that we grew 4,000 in the last 5 years and now we're going to grow another 4,000. It accelerates, right? Like what this is showing is an accelerating curve of growth, of demand, of economic prosperity and windfall that continues to happen, which is what we are betting on as rental property investors that are serving the workforce housing that will be looking for those jobs and looking for that economic opportunity.
And that's the whole thing that you're looking for. When we say the best risk-adjusted return on investment, let's break that down here. As a rental property investor in workforce housing, you take care of the risk mitigation because you're investing in workforce housing where you earn positive cash flow on your investment. That means each and every single month, it pays for itself. You don't have to speculate here. That's why I'm not telling you to go to downtown and to start throwing millions of dollars into this. Even if you have the millions of dollars, you're going to be speculating. You're going to be waiting. It's not going to pay for itself every single month. But you can do this as a rental property investor. That's why you invest around downtown. This workforce housing is risk mitigated. But if you have risk mitigation built in, paying for itself, and then you see some leading indicators for significant upside, that's where you want to be. That in a nutshell is the opportunity to invest in Jacksonville now. And that's why we're so excited about it.
Yeah. And I would just layer on the idea that is in a vacuum, that's true. If you also layer on this idea of there's all this fear in the system and all this uncertainty when it comes to investing and what you're going to do and what the world is doing, like this little oasis of prosperity that is clearly showing here seems like a really, really good beacon of this is what I would want to do with my money, right? So like that's one of as much as I like to talk about gambling, I'm also like immigrant mentality, risk averse. I want to lay myself put my head on a pillow and like sleep well at night, which I didn't do last night. So I'm constantly seeking that. And to me, that's the thing that I point to. I think of, like out of all the things that I could have done with my money, having my money in the Jacksonville workforce housing stock with this stuff happening. As I talk to my other friends, like my buddy Justin, who just bought a home in South Florida, he's like, yeah, I just bought this house in South Florida. I feel like I could have waited like a year or two. I was like, I guess, man, if that's what you're thinking about South Florida. But like for me, I think of the Jacksonville market as this like thing that is this supernova that is happening. Right. So like it just makes me feel way better. Yep. You want to answer a couple of these Q&As?
100%.
Denny Davis is asking when we go on tour, when would that might be? I've heard February thrown around. Yes, Denny, it's looking like February. We're finalizing details.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say there?
We've got a date in mind. I don't want to throw it out now because we have to secure some of the locations ahead of time. We haven't done that yet. It is coming soon. And so, yes, it's looking like it'll be February if you want to do a save the date for all of the weekends in February.
All right. Michael Santoris, Pedro Santoris of the Not Your Average Investor community says, all these projects appear to make a more vibrant downtown. Do you believe that this upcoming development will reduce the office space vacancy, or should the vacant office space be repurposed into mixed use apartments, condos, or affordable housing?
Yeah, I mean, if we want, I think it's really great to talk about some of the things that are not shining examples of a glowing real estate market in downtown Jacksonville. The fact that we have higher vacancy rates for commercial office space specifically it's not what we want, right? And you can start to compare that versus some of the other downtowns that we have in our state here, and our vacancy is higher. So I think that's something to of course take into account, right? That is not residential real estate. We're talking about two very different types of real estate, two very different types of ways that people are making decisions and reasons why that is happening. Of course, there's been the effect of the pandemic and a slow return to work and rethinking about what jobs need to be in the office and all of that good stuff that's playing into that. So yeah, I think the number of 25% office vacancy rate in downtown Jacksonville is real. Do I think that it was overbuilt? I mean, I think probably most of America was overbuilt if you're thinking about it from that perspective, right?
At least in office space for sure, based on the fact that we all went virtual.
Yeah.
And the future is at least hybrid.
And I am specifically talking about office space. So there's some of that. I've read some articles and some other cities are doing some nice things as far as incentivizing the transformation from office into something like multifamily. It's not as easy as people think. It's the values of commercial would have to go down significantly more before it would start to make sense and pencil out for it to incur the costs of changing that type of real estate over to multifamily. If you just think about how office buildings are typically constructed, you have to do some major transformations to the building in order for it to be, a great place for people to live in an apartment. Yeah. So it's not as easy as people think to do that. I haven't heard anything about that happening specifically in downtown Jacksonville. I think it's something that's going to work itself through the system. Yeah. And now to your point, right, as downtown becomes more vibrant, downtown Jacksonville becomes more vibrant, and those cities that are going from 12-hour to 18-hour cities, if you want the best way to solve that, you inherently are going to get more companies that want to move downtown and take up space downtown. So I think we have a leg up as far as how we're going to be able to solve that problem, call it over the next, 5 years versus other cities. But it's definitely something to take note of. And one of the things that I think commercial office has some very big challenges ahead everywhere. When you think about how the debt is maturing there, and then you think about the lack of demand compared to where it was pre-pandemic. So yeah, I think that's real. But again, I think some of these things that we're talking about will only help solve that problem in Jacksonville and probably have us better off than other places. I
mean, I just think demand solves everything, right? Yeah. When I hear that, I think as the little guy business owner, that I think is kind of like the canary in the coal mine of the economy of America, right? Like if I'm feeling confident about stuff and I think there's opportunities for me, then I think that's a good building block for things, right? At the scale that I'm at. I hear, man, major area of people that are coming, they're going to require services. I'm an entrepreneur. I know how to solve problems. If I need space for that problem, I'm plug and play. I'm right there, right? Like whether it's turning those things into co-work spaces or offers, right? Like the number one thing to me is bring the demand.
Yes.
If you bring the demand, business will follow, right? Yes. And if people are moving there, then people that know how to enterprise, right? Like people that know how to find solutions for what happens will show up, and those people will inherently need some office space and need, or some kind of space of doing some kind of thing, right? Like I've pitched you my idea of this content co-creation space slash office hybrid. More people show up to downtown, I'm more willing to take on a commercial lease and pull something off like that because it makes sense with my business, right? So that's one thing. And then the other thing that I think of is just man, there is risk mitigation and there's risk mitigation, right? There's asset classes and then there's asset classes, right? Like not all real estate is built the same,
right?
My takeaway is if you bring the demand, everything else follows. But also at my scale where I'm at, where I don't have $1 million to diversify into $10 $1 million bets. I want to be in the safest thing I can be with my money right now. And what that looks like to me, based on these numbers and everything that's happening, is residential real estate in a growing economy where people are moving there, and let the people with the bigger cash flows and the bigger risk appetites play in the commercial office space realm.
I would agree. I thought it's interesting, as the patron Santorios points out, that both Austin and Jacksonville have 25% office vacancy rate. And we're going to get into some of the numbers comparing Jacksonville to Austin in just a second here. Clearly, they're doing quite well by all metrics as far as downtown Austin goes. And the other thing I'll just add is, Michael kind of teed it up and said, well, do you think this vibrancy of downtown will lead to solving this problem? Let's look no further than what JWB is doing, right? JWB is moving from our location, which is not in downtown as we sit here right now. And over the course of the next year-ish, we're going to move all of our offices into our brand new building. When I say brand new, it's a historic building, but it's brand new for us. Right. And so we're moving all 100 and something teammates here at JWB to this building. It's 72,000 square feet. That building had about half of it being unoccupied when we first bought the building a little bit over a year ago now. And when it's all said and done, we're finally moved in, that will be 72,000 square feet. That's fully occupied downtown. That will be built out. It will also have some really nice amenities down below. So think restaurants, potentially other things down below. So that's a really cool case study of how this vibrancy solves that problem right there.
Widely known as the GC building.
The GC building.
In the circles that know.
That was funny.
All right, GC. Speaking of which, do we want to get into these downtown stats that you put together?
I think so.
Okay.
I think it kind of puts it all together here. So, beyond how excited I am, I love to find just empirical stats, evidence to show what the vision is in my mind, and the vision in our mind, and the vision of the dozens of other developers here in downtown Jacksonville and the city leaders, right? And so I start to look at other examples, other comparables. When you're in real estate and you want to see what other things are, how other things are doing, how they're worth or what they're worth, you look for comparable properties. So if you want to see another comparable of a downtown, you can easily do that to see one that has achieved the level of success that you hope to emulate. And then you see the path that they took to get there. So I did a little bit of digging. This is part of the reason I was so excited about my nerding out on the downtown report yesterday, is because I also nerded out on other downtown reports. And I think I can provide some perspective of the type of growth that we expect to have in downtown Jacksonville and how achievable this is. So in the downtown report for Jacksonville, they outlined that they expect us to get to 18,000 residents living downtown by the year 2030. So again, mired in, call it 3,500-ish for as long as I know, probably decades living downtown, to go from 4,000 to 8,000 over the last 10 years, then to go from 8,000 to 18,000 over the next 7 years. That's what our city expects. And on the scale of it, you might, or at the first sight of it, you might think, well, that's just puffery. That's just putting some really big numbers out there. How does that really play out? Well, so then I said, let's go and see if that's actually been accomplished for some of these other downtowns that we know have come online. And that brings me to these stats right here. So I wanted to look and compare to, we're going to start with Nashville, known as an extreme downtown success story. We know all the major events that come to downtown Nashville. And I don't remember ever talking about downtown Nashville 20 years ago.
Agreed.
Right? Well, so as of 2013, these are the number of residents living downtown in both Jacksonville and Nashville. We had 3,800 residents living downtown in 2013. And in Nashville, they only had 4,658 residents living downtown. Kind of shocking, huh?
Kind of shocking.
Surprising to think that we were right there with them as of 2013.
Yeah, pretty close.
Then as of 2023, right now, 10 years later, we now have 7,695 people living in downtown Jacksonville.
Not too bad.
And Nashville has 17,000.
Pretty good.
So they went from 4,600 to 17,000. We expect to go from call it 3,800 to 18,000. So just proof positive that this is possible.
Yeah.
All right.
Bill Green is putting in the chat. He lived and worked in downtown Nashville in 2005, and you could buy a mini mansion for $150,000.
Wow. They're going to be saying the same thing about Jacksonville. But
yeah, exactly.
So then let's look at another one, Austin, right? As of 2010, so downtown Austin started coming online a little bit sooner than Nashville. They had 7,635 residents living downtown as of 2010. So kind of like where we are right now. At that moment in 2010, we had 3,900. So they were bigger, right? Still within the size of and the scope, though. You could still call them a model that you could follow right there. So 13 years later, as of 2023, Jacksonville, again, we have 7,695. And they're up to 14,300 residents living downtown. Yep. And they're a huge success story.
Yeah.
So if and when we can get to 14,000 residents living downtown, you're talking about a completely different economy, a completely different set of economic drivers, not a completely different economy, a completely untapped resource of economic drivers that we don't have today. Talent destination, jobs, more money for infrastructure in our great community. And of course, as real estate investors, if you own these assets as this transition is happening, you stand to benefit greatly from home prices going up and rents going up in the neighborhoods that we invest in surrounding downtown.
Got it. Okay. So then
I put some numbers to this as well, right? This is showing that expected growth. How would we get to this 18,000 residents living downtown? Well, it comes from a lot of developers and a public-private partnership to enable more construction of units. The big thing here is, see where we have about 4,600 residential units in downtown Jacksonville right now. We expect to get to 11,600. But this isn't pie in the sky numbers. This isn't like we expect that some developer is going to come along down the road and say, hey, I want to develop another 7,000 units.
Yeah.
No, we have 5,000 of those units under an active construction right now. We would be at 9,600 units if and when these projects come online. So you can start to see this in your head that the people who are really smart with their money here locally are already betting that this is going to happen. And I think that's really important. And that's how we'll get from roughly 7,700 residents living downtown to that 18,000 number that the city projects.
Yeah, you don't need to find a lot more construction once the things already under construction are there, right? Like it feels like a pretty simple thing to bet on, right?
You know, it is you could look at a report out there and be a lot less convinced it was going to happen versus if you look at this report and you know that the money's already in play. Yep. I think that's the biggest thing I'll keep reiterating. Yep. So then I was like, all right, well, how does this land on all of us? If you know, we are here to own an asset that is going to produce the best risk-adjusted return on us, let me start to see what happened in some of these places like Nashville and Austin in terms of home price appreciation. So I went and I looked back from 1982 to 2012, which was really by my estimates, and feel free to chime in here for those who are familiar with Nashville. Again, I'm not an expert on the Nashville market, but you start to see things really start to change around 2013. So prior to that, Nashville's home price appreciation per year was 3.8%. And I compared that to the US from that same time period. And the US average annualized home price appreciation is 3.5%. So I did the math on that. That means that Nashville had 9% higher home price appreciation on average than the US for those number of years, 30 years there.
Okay.
Then I said, well, after this started coming online, what has Nashville's home price appreciation rate been compared to the US? Are we showing a dramatic increase as a result of this vibrancy and downtown coming online? And guess what? We're able to demonstrate that. From 2013 to 2022, the home price appreciation per year in Nashville has averaged 10.6% per year, while the US has averaged 8.2% per year. So for 30 years, 30 years roughly, they averaged roughly 9% more than the US average. In the last 9 years, 10 years-ish, they've averaged 29% more home price appreciation than the US. This is the best data that I can find right now to show how this is going to hit your pocketbooks as an investor. You have the opportunity to be a part of this at the ground level, just like I'm sure Billy Green, the mountain man, looks back at what happened in Nashville in 2005 and wishes that he had bought as many as he could of those $150,000 properties there.
You know, what's important to me in this slide, GC, is not just how much it outperformed the market, but this idea that I think what people are afraid of are, well, yeah, everybody did great. Like real estate just did great for the last 10 years. Like you couldn't like drop a rock anywhere and not have it turn into a great investment. True, right? Like a lot of places, like you didn't have to be awesome at real estate to make money at real estate over the last 10 years, but it's the not your average investor that has not your average returns, right? Like this idea of outperforming by 2.5% that ends up being like 30% extra, that's not a coincidence, right? Like that's the type of stuff that we talk about in show after show, that an extra 2-3% makes a giant difference when you're talking about these dollar figures over amount of time with leverage and the way that we are trying to like save up for retirement in this thing. It leads to millions of dollars.
It does.
And that to me is the important part. It's at no matter what I'm doing right now, I need to think about how to get my money working as hard for me as possible if I want to reach my retirement goals, if I want to reach my lifestyle goals, if I want to have cash flow happening when I don't want to be working anymore. And this to me is like the thing, right? Like this idea that if I can get in a market that's about to outperform the rest of the markets and do it at a, similar fashion to this, in the same way as, putting dollars that I have available to me right now, not $1 million, right? Like 180,000, whatever, $100,000 at play.
Sure.
Then that's what I want to do, right? Like that is the whole idea of like why you may want to go to chatwithjwb.com and just start having this conversation and like start seeing where you can get the capital for it and how it's going to make sense. Because I think once you look at this stuff, you can get a little bit beyond the fear of it, and you can get a little bit beyond the confusion of why it makes so much sense, right? It's this edge. Yeah. So you also have Austin in here, right?
Yeah. I just think more examples here help prove the thesis more and more and more. And so when I can find these examples and I get some actual data from some of these cities, I'm going to share them with you. And I think this is a cool kind of way to compare what was appreciation before they came online and what was appreciation after.
Yeah.
So look at Austin here. Again, another city that just went from 12-hour city to 18-hour city. They kind of came online somewhere around 2010, best estimates for me. So for roughly 30 years, Austin appreciated at a rate of 3.9% per year on average, while the US appreciated at a rate of 4.1% per year. So Austin actually had less home price appreciation on average than the US up until that time period. Let's see here. Yeah, down 5%. But then they're on all of their activities. It's not just one single activity. All these activities started to come together like we share here for Jacksonville. And over the last 12, 13 years, Austin has seen 8% on average home price appreciation per year, while the US has seen 5.9%. So they went from 5% below annualized home price appreciation for the previous 30 years to the last, call it 10, 12 years. They're 36% above the US when it comes to home price appreciation. This is the opportunity that you all have here with downtown Jacksonville.
I don't think there's much for me to say here, man.
That's a first.
Yeah. Like I think that's the point of it all. Like I applaud you for really digging into this. Like I remember when this report first came out, I'm like, yeah, but GC, we've been talking about downtown so much. I'm kind of sick of talking about downtown. But now I see the forest through the trees, right? Like I see that this is the impetus. What I'm seeing behind the data and with the perspective I know is that this report, these like solid runs on the board, the scoreboard, this trajectory, these dollars that are at play, that is undoubtedly, in motion, not just a city of renderings as we've been called before,
right,
gives you the certainty to then go look, okay, fine. If I really believe this is happening, then let's go look at other comps. Let's do what smart investors do. Let's do what not your average investors do. Let's do what savvy real estate investors do. And let's compare this scenario to other scenarios that are like it. And you went and found two beautiful comps that are being, that we're being compared to already in the media. And you put some real perspective around this idea of what I'm hearing is, this is not what you are forecasting, but what I'm hearing is, 30% better performance than the rest of the market if we follow a similar trajectory, and that's on the low end.
That is what's been demonstrated. Now, if you go to the investment evaluations that we put in front of our clients, guess how much of that 30% we expect in our returns?
Zero.
We don't expect any of this in the returns. This is all under promise and over deliver, and the overall return expectations, even without this, are 9%. 10%, really solid. So this is that asset that can produce for you on a monthly basis, that is recession resistant, that performs well in bad economies. And then, oh, by the way, when you lump that with a downtown that is showing the signs of going from secondary, tertiary city to 18-hour city, that's where rental property investors will win the most, hands down. That's what this information is demonstrating. And I'm going to continue to be on the lookout for other examples like this because I think it helps make it more real for all of us.
I love it. So, we shared it. We shared the report. Dive into that report. Do what Gregg's doing. Tinker around. Go look at other downtown reports. Do your own comparisons. Make your own conclusions. But at the end of the day, once you realize that this is a advantage that you really, really want to tap into, and you want to know like how quickly you can tap into it and what are the best ways, go to chatwithjwb.com, book a call, and talk about this with a team of experts.
Yes, you shall.
Yes, you shall. All right, GC, good job, buddy.
Yeah, it's fun, man.
You did a good job putting that data together.
Thanks,
it is something I've been asking for a long time, because I had a feeling that it would look really, really good. We just needed this state of downtown to like prove that this is something like, we're really cooking with potatoes here. I don't know if that's a saying here in America. It's not where I come from either.
With con papas.
Cocinando con papas. But that being said, I want to thank the community for showing up, asking great questions. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Right? Like we had like 60 people here being a part of this conversation. It doesn't happen without you. Michael Santoris, I see you saying great show, great questions yourself, buddy. And I just never take it for granted that they take an hour of their work week to show up here, ask these questions, and be a part of this and make our job so much fun, man.
Agreed. It's just amazing that we get to be so fired up to talk about these things. And I feel it from the community that they're equally fired up to talk about these things, right? With Denny Davies' comment and Michael's great questions and the other great questions that we've had. Like, it is so cool to me that we've created our nice little spot in the world here where we're passionate about the same thing. So I love you guys. Thank you guys for making this such an awesome part of our workday.
Speaking of things we're fired up on Thursday.
Yeah.
It's not Bill Green's birthday anymore, but it's my birthday.
Oh, yes, it is.
And we're talking about something I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, because I know the community's been wanting to talk about, and it's, do rents drop during a housing crisis, during a recession, right? Like we're going to compare rents and prices and how that performs. We're always talking about prices, and there's always all these questions about, yeah, but what about the rents? What about the rents? Right? So we're going to dive deep into the rents on Thursday. It's going to be an awesome show. It's the only work I'm going to be doing on Thursday because my parents are in town. So I'm going to be spending it with y'all. And from now till then, there's only one thing that I'm really going to ask that you don't do, so you don't ruin Bill's birthday. Don't ruin my birthday. It's just one thing. Don't be average. See you Thursday.